"Don't touch her," a tiny alien girl bullied, until a brave human defended her. The space station hung in the void like a silver spider. Its long arms reached across the empty black, spinning slowly to balance its massive weight. Ships of every shape and color came and went, docking in the Great Bay. Aliens from hundreds of worlds moved through its corridors, their voices blending into a constant hum of chatter and machinery. Some were tall and elegant, others squat and muscular. Some had 6 arms, some none. Some had scales, some feathers, some smooth, translucent skin. But all moved with purpose, all followed the unspoken rules of the station. And in one narrow corridor, one very small alien girl tried to move quietly, hoping no one would notice her at all. Her name was Leary. She was tiny, even for her species, with pale lavender skin and big golden eyes that always seemed afraid. Her limbs were thin and fragile, and she often tripped over her own feet. She carried a small satchel of tools, though she didn't know how to use most of them. Leary had never been important. Her parents had died when she was very young, leaving her with no money, no protection, and no voice that anyone listened to. On this station, being weak meant being nothing. The moment she stepped into the wide corridor, she felt the familiar eyes on her. A group of alien children blocked her path. They were taller than her, stronger and crueler. One of them, a broad-shouldered male named Krath, smirked as he leaned on the wall. His claws tapped rhythmically. Another, a thin, wiry girl called Vexa, crossed her multiple arms and tilted her head, eyes narrowing. The third, a short boy with a sharp beak, cackled softly behind them. "Look at her," Krath said. "Does she even know how to walk?" Vexa laughed. "She walks like a wobbling rock. Bet she trips on her own shadow." The small boy leaned forward, peering at Leary. "Maybe we should teach her a lesson, make her smaller." Leary froze, gripping her satchel tightly. Her heart hammered so fast she thought it might burst. She wanted to turn and run, but the corridor was long and the station was crowded. There was no escape. Her golden eyes filled with tears, but she refused to cry. Not here, not in front of them. The bullies advanced. Krath reached out and grabbed the strap of her satchel, yanking it so hard that tools spilled onto the floor. Leary stumbled, barely catching herself. "Careful," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Careful," Vexa laughed cruelly. "You're always careful, little girl. That's why you're weak." The small crowd of alien children that had gathered around them laughed along. None of them tried to stop the bullying. They enjoyed it as much as the bullies did. It was the way the station worked. Strong laughed at weak. Weak had no place. Leary bent down, trying to pick up her scattered tools. "Please," she said softly, "just leave me alone." But the bullies ignored her. The tall Krath kicked one of her tools across the corridor. It skidded across the metal floor with a sharp clatter. Leary flinched, her eyes filling with tears she refused to shed. She had learned long ago that crying brought more cruelty. And then something unusual happened. A human appeared at the end of the corridor. He was not like the aliens around him. He was taller than most of the children, but smaller than many adults. His skin was pale compared to the bright scales and feathers around him. His hair was dark and messy. His eyes were clear, calm, and fixed directly on the bullies. The humans on the station were rare. Most aliens thought them weak and foolish. They did not understand humans. They did not know that humans were unpredictable, stubborn, and, in the right circumstances, dangerous. This human, who was carrying a small tool case, stopped abruptly as he saw Leary surrounded. He tilted his head, observing, not saying a word. He did not rush in. He did not yell. He only watched, his brows furrowed slightly. The bullies noticed him immediately. "What's this?" Krath said, sneering. "A human wants to play hero," Vexa laughed, crossing her arms. "He'll fall over and get squashed. Watch." The human walked forward, slow and steady. "Leave her alone," he said. His voice was strange to their ears, soft, yet filled with a calm power they did not understand. The bullies stopped, startled. No one had ever spoken to them like that. Humans were not supposed to interfere. "Did you hear me?" the human said. His voice was calm, but now it carried a hint of anger. "Leave her alone." Leary's golden eyes widened. She could not believe it. Someone had finally spoken for her. Krath laughed, a deep, mocking sound. "And if we do, what will you do, human? Hit us?" The human shook his head. "I won't hit you, I don't need to." Vexa tilted her head, puzzled. "Then what? You'll cry like she does." The human stepped closer and something strange happened. He did not threaten them with strength, but he did not back down. He held his ground. His calm presence made the corridor feel smaller, tighter. The crowd around them sensed it. The bullies shifted uncomfortably. Something about him, something about his quiet certainty made them hesitate. Krath scowled. "Weak human, step aside or you will do what?" The human interrupted, voice calm but firm. "Push her again, take her tools. You will answer for your actions, all of you." "Understand," the bullies laughed nervously. This was not supposed to happen. No human had ever threatened them. They had all grown up believing humans were soft, weak, and cowardly. But this human, he was neither soft nor cowardly. He was something else. Leary stood frozen, unsure what to do. She wanted to hide behind the human, but she did not move. She watched, amazed, as he stayed between her and the bullies. Krath tried to shove him. The human did not move. Vexa stepped closer, trying to intimidate him. The human's gaze did not waver. The small boy with the sharp beak squeaked nervously. The humans here were nothing like the stories, and now the stories seemed false. "Enough," the human said quietly, his eyes locked on Krath. "Leave her, now." The words carried a strange power. The laughter around them began to fade. The bullies looked at each other, unsure what to do. They had never faced anyone like this. No one had ever stopped them. Finally, with a frustrated snarl, Krath shoved Leary lightly and stormed away. Vexa and the boy followed, muttering insults under their breath, but they did not touch her again. The crowd of onlookers dispersed, whispering among themselves. Some stared at the human with awe, some with confusion, and some with jealousy. Leary slowly stepped forward. Her small hands trembled as she adjusted her satchel. Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible. The human knelt slightly to meet her eyes. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "No one should treat you like that." Leary blinked. She had never heard such words before, never from anyone. The humans on this station were strangers, seen as outsiders, and they rarely cared about the small or weak. But this one, he cared. "What's your name?" the human asked gently. "Leary," she whispered. "I'm Jonah," he said. "I work here repairing machines. If anyone bothers you again, you tell me." She nodded, her heart feeling lighter than it had in years. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him. But the station was a dangerous place, and kindness was rare. As Jonah walked away, Leary watched him go, feeling something unfamiliar: hope. For the first time in her life, she felt that maybe she was not completely alone. But the bullies had not given up entirely. They watched from a distance, whispering and plotting. They would not forget the human, and they would not forget the girl who had been protected. And somewhere deep in Leary's small chest, a spark began to grow, a tiny flame of courage she had never known before. That night, as the station spun silently in the void, Leary lay on her cot, staring at the ceiling. She thought of the human, of the courage in his eyes, and of the words he had spoken. She had never felt safe before. She had never felt valued. But now maybe, just maybe, the impossible could happen. Maybe she could survive here. Maybe she could even learn to be strong like him. Somewhere in the station, Jonah worked late into the night, repairing machines that no one else could fix. He did not think of himself as brave. He did not think of himself as special. He only thought of one thing: no one deserves to be afraid for their life when they cannot protect themselves. And in a universe where strength ruled and the weak were forgotten, that small idea, simple, human, and powerful, was about to change everything. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person to stand, and the world begins to notice. The next morning, the station corridor was alive with its usual buzz, alien voices, mechanical clanks, and the hiss of airlocks opening and closing. Leary walked cautiously, her satchel clutched tightly, hoping the bullies had forgotten her. But she knew better. Cruelty had a memory, and on this station the weak never stayed unmarked for long. Krath, Vexa, and the sharp-beaked boy were waiting near the corner, smirking. They had regrouped overnight and whispered among themselves. Their patience had turned into anger. The human had humiliated them yesterday. Someone had finally dared to challenge their cruelty, and they had not forgotten it. Leary froze the moment she saw them. Her golden eyes widened. "Please, no," she whispered under her breath. "Look who's here," Krath hissed. "Our little snack, and her human hero isn't here to save her this time." Vexa's many arms crossed as she leaned forward. "Maybe we should teach her a proper lesson. Make sure she remembers her place." The small boy squeaked, sharpening his beak with a quick movement. "Yes, and the human will hear about it too. He'll regret ever helping her." Leary's hands shook. Her tools clattered in her satchel. Her mind raced. She had nowhere to run, no one to hide behind. She felt trapped. And then she heard it, a steady, calm voice calling from behind the corridor. "Don't touch her." Jonah stepped into the corridor, his tool case in one hand. His dark hair was slightly messy and his pale face was calm, but his eyes held something the bullies had never seen before: certainty. Absolute certainty that he would not let harm come to Leary. Krath snorted. "Ah, so the human decided to play hero again. Tell me, do you actually know what you're doing?" "I know enough," Jonah replied evenly. "Now step back." The bullies laughed, but this time it was less confident. Humans were rare here and they were usually easy to ignore, but Jonah was different. The way he stood, calm, straight-backed, unshaken, made the bullies hesitate. His quiet power filled the corridor like an invisible wall. "Don't move," Jonah said. "Not one step closer." Vexa leaned forward, testing him. "Or what?" Jonah's eyes did not flicker. "Or you will regret it." The words were simple. No threats, no anger, just certainty. And for the first time the bullies felt fear. Not the kind of fear from being caught, but something deeper. Fear that someone small and unexpected, could stop them. Krath lunged at Leary, his large hands reaching for her satchel. But Jonah moved faster than anyone expected. He grabbed Krath's wrist with one hand and pushed him back with the other. The human did not yell, did not strike, just held firm. "Let go," Jonah said, his voice calm, but every word carried a weight that made Krath stumble. Leary's heart pounded. She had never seen anyone protect her like this, not even her parents, and they were long gone. She stayed behind Jonah, clutching her satchel, trembling but safe. Vexa hissed, trying to grab Leary herself. Jonah blocked her with a slight shift in position. The bullies stared in shock. This human was not reacting like a weak creature. He was clever, fast, and unafraid. "Enough!" a voice shouted from the corridor entrance. Security officers arrived, alerted by the commotion. Their large frames blocked the exit and their armored suits reflected the station lights. They looked at the scene, confused. "What's happening here?" one of them barked. Jonah stepped aside slightly but stayed close to Leary. "These children were attacking her," he said simply. "She didn't do anything to deserve it." The security officer's eyes flicked to the tiny girl. "Is that true?" Leary nodded, barely able to speak. "Yes, please, The officers glanced at the bullies. Krath scowled, Vex's lips curled, and the small boy shrank back. "It's nothing," Krath said quickly. "We were just playing." Jonah interrupted. "Is that what you call threatening someone, stealing their tools and making them afraid?" The officers exchanged glances. Normally, they ignored minor bullying among the children, following the station's rules. But something about Jonah's calm words, the fear in the bullies' eyes, and the courage he radiated made them pause. They were unsure, uncomfortable, and unfamiliar with this kind of confrontation. Jonah did not raise his voice. He did not shout. He simply stood straight, looking at the bullies without fear, and waited. Finally, one officer said, "Step back, all of you." The bullies grumbled but complied. Their laughter had vanished. The corridor felt heavy with silence, broken only by Leary's soft breathing and Jonah's steady presence. After the officers left, Jonah knelt beside Leary. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. I think so," she whispered. Her golden eyes shone with awe. I've never had anyone help me like this." "You don't have to be afraid anymore," Jonah said. "Not while I'm here. And even when I'm not, remember this, you are not nothing. You have value. You deserve respect." Leary blinked, tears welling in her eyes. She had never heard words like these before. She had never believed she deserved anything at all. Do you really mean that?" she asked. "I do," Jonah said. "Humans protect those who cannot protect themselves. It's what we do." Leary's heart swelled with a strange warmth. For the first time, she felt safe. The station, with all its harsh rules and cruelty, suddenly seemed a little less frightening. Over the next few days, Jonah continued to be near Leary. He fixed machines in her part of the station, repaired broken equipment, and quietly observed the corridors. Every time a bully approached, Jonah's presence alone was enough to stop them. He did not yell. He did not fight unless necessary. He simply stood, calm and unyielding like a rock in the tide. Leary began to follow him secretly. She wanted to be near him, to learn, to feel the courage he carried. Slowly she began to mimic him, standing a little straighter, speaking a little louder, refusing to flinch at the bully's taunts. The bullies noticed. They tried again, whispering threats and mocking her, but Leary no longer shrank. She no longer ran. She remembered Jonah's words, "You have value. You deserve respect." One morning, as Jonah was repairing a power conduit, Krath and Vexa cornered Leary in an empty maintenance bay. The small boy was nowhere in sight. Leary froze, remembering the fear she had felt the first time. Krath stepped closer, claws extended. "You think you're brave now," he sneered. "You need to learn your place." Vexa smirked. "Your human friend isn't here. We can do what we want." Leary's heart hammered. She wanted to run, but she remembered Jonah's calm stance from days ago. She took a small breath, lifted her head, and spoke. "Leave me alone," she said, her voice shaking but louder than before. Krath laughed. "What's this? You talk back now." "I am not nothing," Leary said, voice firmer. "I have value. You have no right to touch me." The bullies froze. None of the children on the station had ever spoken like this. Weaklings didn't fight back, they ran or cried. And yet here she stood, trembling but unbroken. Jonah appeared behind them, tool case in hand. He didn't run, didn't shout. He simply stepped in front of Leary. "I said don't touch her," he repeated calmly. The bullies hesitated. They had misjudged humans, they were not weak. And this human was not afraid. His quiet power filled the bay. It was the kind of strength the bullies had never understood. Krath growled and pushed forward, but Jonah sidestepped him with ease, guiding him away without a fight. Vexa hissed and lunged, but Jonah's calm, precise movements blocked her, keeping her from reaching Leary. The small boy squeaked in panic and ran, leaving the other two to face Jonah alone. Finally, Krath and Vexa backed off, muttering under their breaths. Jonah did not chase them. He did not need to. The lesson was clear. The weak had allies, and injustice would not go unchallenged. Leary stared at Jonah, awe and gratitude mixing in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're learning," Jonah said with a small smile. "Remember, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting even when you are afraid." For the first time in her life, Leary felt the spark of something new: strength, courage, hope. She realized that she did not have to hide anymore, and she did not have to accept cruelty as her fate. Word of Jonah's actions spread quickly across the station. Other aliens whispered in corridors, questioning their own assumptions. Humans were weak, yes, but one human had stood up to the bullies and changed the day. What did that say about the nature of strength? The bullies, meanwhile, plotted silently. They would not forget Jonah, and they would not forget Leary. But for now, they were cautious. They had learned the hard way that humans were unpredictable, and sometimes unpredictable was dangerous. That evening, as the station lights dimmed and the hum of machinery slowed, Leary sat in her small quarters, thinking about the events of the day. She had survived, and she had been defended. And more importantly, she had begun to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could stand up for herself too. Jonah returned late, covered in grease and soot from the day's repairs. He glanced at Leary and smiled gently. "How was your day?" he asked. Leary smiled back, a small but genuine smile. "Better," she said. "Much better," Jonah nodded. "Good. Remember, you are not alone, not now, not ever." And in the quiet of the station, amidst the endless stars outside, a tiny alien girl began to understand something she had never believed possible: that courage and kindness, no matter how small, could change the world. The bullies would try again, the station would remain harsh, and danger would never vanish completely. But for the first time, Leary knew she had a protector, and she had begun to protect herself. And somewhere deep inside, a tiny flame of rebellion against cruelty had been lit, a flame that would not easily be extinguished. The station spun silently in the void, a giant hive of light and sound where thousands of alien lives intersected every day. Leary walked cautiously through the corridors, but for the first time she did not feel completely helpless. She had Jonah, the human who had stepped between her and the bullies. And more importantly, she had begun to believe that she herself could stand up in ways she never imagined. Yet danger did not wait. It never did. Krath and Vexa had not forgotten Jonah or Leary. They had been humiliated twice now, once when the human had stopped them from hurting her, and once when Leary had found the courage to speak against them. The two aliens whispered among themselves in shadowed corridors, plotting their revenge. Their claws flexed and their multi-jointed limbs twitched with tension. "We will make her remember who she is," Krath hissed, "and we will make the human pay for interfering." Vexa nodded. "He is bold, yes, but he is alone. And humans, no matter what they pretend, are weak when outnumbered. We just need a plan." The plan was simple and cruel. They would trap Leary in a maintenance bay during the station's busiest hour when no adults were watching. The small boy with the sharp beak would alert them if Jonah approached. Then they would corner her, humiliate her, and scare her enough to remember her place. Meanwhile, Leary and Jonah continued their quiet routines. Jonah fixed broken panels, repaired malfunctioning drones, and guided the tiny alien girl through the station's complex corridors. He taught her small things every day: how to walk with confidence, how to speak firmly, and how to protect herself even without strength. "You don't have to be big to be brave," Jonah told her one afternoon as they repaired a leaking coolant pipe. "Sometimes, courage is just standing your ground when everyone else expects you to fall." Leary listened closely, absorbing every word. She tried to mimic his calm, confident manner. Her voice grew steadier. Her eyes no longer darted away when someone looked at her. She was small, yes, but she was learning to be dangerous in her own way by refusing to be afraid. But the bullies were patient, watching from a distance. They knew it would not be enough to corner her physically. Leary's courage was growing too quickly. They needed a plan that would hit harder, one that would shake both Leary and the human. And one day, they found their opportunity. It was a busy shift change when alien workers flooded the corridors. Jonah was busy inspecting a damaged airlock. Leary was delivering tools to a nearby workshop. The bullies waited in the shadows near a maintenance bay, their claws and teeth ready. As Leary passed, Krath stepped forward, blocking her path. "Going somewhere, little one?" he hissed. Leary froze but remembered Jonah's words. She straightened her back and said firmly, "Yes. I am delivering these tools. Step aside." Krath snarled. "You think you can talk to me like that?" "I don't think," Leary said, her voice trembling slightly but growing louder. "I know, and I know you have no right to touch me." Vexa stepped out from the shadows, her multiple arms crossing. "Impressive. You're learning fast, but not fast enough." Before Leary could react, the bullies lunged. Krath tried to grab her satchel. Vexa reached for her arm. The small boy squeaked a warning, but it was too late. They had her cornered. And then, as if from nowhere, Jonah appeared. "Back off," he said, calm but firm. His voice carried through the busy corridor, cutting through the noise. "Back off, or I will make you regret it." Krath and Vexa froze. They had miscalculated Jonah's timing. They had assumed he was busy, that they could strike while he was distracted. But the human had been watching. He always watched. Krath lunged at him, claws extended. Jonah sidestepped effortlessly, guiding Krath forward and out of the cornered area. Vexa tried to attack from the side, but Jonah blocked her with a quick, precise move. The bullies were strong, but Jonah's calm and clever movements were faster, smarter, and more intimidating than brute force alone. A small crowd of aliens had gathered, whispering in surprise. Humans were weak, they had always been told. Yet here was a human who moved with control, who never panicked, and who protected a tiny alien girl without using unnecessary violence. Leary watched from behind Jonah, her heart pounding. She had never seen anyone like this. She realized that strength did not always mean power or claws. Sometimes, strength meant courage, intelligence, and a refusal to be intimidated. Jonah did not shout. He did not threaten unnecessarily. He simply moved to protect her, using his body and his calm presence as a shield. The bullies tried again, but every attempt was blocked. Krath snarled in frustration. "You will pay for this, human." "You already have," Jonah said quietly, "for underestimating me." The bullies hesitated. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to run. And yet, here was one standing firmly, protecting the very thing they wanted to harm. The crowd of aliens whispered, spreading rumors. "Did you see that human?" He didn't even raise his voice, but he stopped them. "Yes," another said. "And that little girl, she isn't afraid anymore. She is learning to stand." Meanwhile, the bullies retreated, frustrated but unharmed. Their pride had been bruised, and they would not forget this. But for now, Jonah had won, and Leary had survived. After the confrontation, Jonah turned to her. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. I think so," Leary whispered. Her golden eyes shone with awe and gratitude. "Thank you." "You're welcome," Jonah said gently. "Remember, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting even when you are afraid." For the first time, Leary understood. She had acted even when she was terrified. She had stood her ground. She had been brave. Over the next few days, things began to change on the station. Leary walked with a little more confidence. She spoke more clearly. She did not flinch at every glance or whisper. The other aliens began to notice. Some whispered in admiration. Some whispered in confusion. Humans were weak, yes, but this one human had stood against cruelty and inspired courage in someone else. What did that mean for the station's rules, for its culture? The bullies, meanwhile, plotted silently. They would not forget Jonah, and they would not forget Leary. They would need a bigger plan next time, but for now, they were cautious. The humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability was dangerous. Leary began to realize something else. She was not as helpless as she thought. She had learned small ways to protect herself, to stand firm, and to speak with courage. She had learned that being tiny did not mean being powerless. Jonah noticed the change too. One evening, as they repaired a failing air conduit together, he smiled. "You're learning quickly," he said. "Soon you won't need me to stand in front of you. You'll be able to face things on your own." "I hope so," Leary said, her voice steady. "I want to be brave like you." "You already are," Jonah replied. Bravery is not measured by size or strength. It's measured by how you face what scares you. And so, the station continued its hum of life. Machines whirred, aliens spoke, ships docked and left. But in one small corner, a tiny lavender-skinned girl had begun to grow. She had survived cruelty, faced danger, and started to understand the meaning of courage. The bullies were still out there, still waiting. They would not give up easily. But Leary had learned something new. She had allies, she had courage, and she had a human who refused to let her be hurt. And somewhere deep in her heart, a flame of rebellion against cruelty burned brighter than ever. The station might have been vast and cold, but in that moment Leary felt something warm. She felt hope. She felt strength. And she knew, for the first time, that maybe she could survive and even thrive in this world. Because sometimes the smallest spark can start a fire. And sometimes, a tiny alien girl, standing behind a brave human, could become more powerful than anyone expected.